Let's keep it real. You want those SSDI dollars, don't you? Don't you? In this video, I'm going to discuss the top 7 ways you can be allowed for SSDI disability. Depending on your situation, you could be this close to getting SSDI benefits. If you're ready for this, let's get it started. You've been following me for a while now. I'm sure you've heard me say that there are tons of people applying for SSDI every year, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands of people. And I would say over 93.5% of them, and understand that's not an exact percentage, but that's just what I'm giving out. 93.5% of them are completely unaware of some of the quickest, easiest ways that they can get on SSDI. And those ways are right there available for them. Now, some of these ways have a lot to do with your disabling impairment, but there are a few ways involving something else other than you having medical records in file. It could be about your age, it could be about your work experience, it could be about your actual condition or something else. There are a lot of ways to be approved for SSDI, but to go through all those in a video will either go over your head, bore you, or put you to sleep, and I'm not about to have you do that on my video. I want you to finish it. Here are the top 7 ways you could be allowed or approved for SSDI disability. Number 1, simply meeting a listing. Now, if you've watched my video about the Blue Book, you would know something about this. If you haven't, I put a link in the description and I put something up there for you to click on right now, but make sure you come back to this one. Now, as you know, the Blue Book deals with the listing of impairments, and it's the criteria that will allow you to know what you need to be an approval or an allowance on your medical conditions alone. So meeting a listing is one of the surefire ways of being approved for SSDI benefits. Number 2, be over the age of 60. If you've read my book, The 10 Disability Commandments, I discussed how the rules work in your favor the older you get. It's commandment number 7. Now, this path is driven solely by SSA's rules. If you're over the age of 60, you fall into the category of what is called closely approaching retirement age. It starts at age 60 and it runs to about age 65. If your age falls into this age range, then what it's saying is SSA's rules are going to work in your favor when it comes to your work experience and your ability to return to work. It all boils down to one word, and that word is transferability. If you can't perform your past work, can your skills transfer to some other kind of work? The answer is not likely, unless this other work that's out there is so similar to what you did in the past to where you would not need to make any major adjustments to the type of work that someone's trying to send you to. And we're talking in terms of the industry, the work performed, the processes, tools, equipment, things like that. If you need to make more than a minimal adjustment to go to some other kind of work, SSA will say that's too much to be trying to adjust. So we're just going to allow you based on your age. In essence, if you need to make more than a minimal adjustment to do some other kind of work because of the skills you had in the past, your skills are not transferable, no work is possible, and SSA will find you disabled. Again, this applies to whether you are at least 60 years of age, unless we're talking about number 3 on the list. Number 3 on the list, be at least 55 years old. If you're old enough, you probably remember that Saturday morning cartoon series, Schoolhouse Rock. And there was that one cartoon that said that 3 is the magic number. Well, when it comes to SSA disability, 55 is the magic number. SSA classifies the age range of 55 and 59 as advanced age. I'm just a messenger here, so back up a taste. When you turn 55 years old in the SSA disability verse, a whole new world opens up. At 55, the rules shift and work more in your favor than they do before you turn 55. And just like we covered in number 2 on the list, when you reach 55, your ability to transfer skills becomes a challenge. It would take more than a minimal adjustment to do some other kind of work in terms of tools and processes and industry and things like that to transfer your skills to another job. So transferability, that window shrinks significantly to where you would have to fit all your skills into this little window here, right there, that little window, to try to figure out whether you can actually do some other kind of work using the skill base that you have. But it's going to take more than a minimal adjustment to fit into that window. With number 2 and number 3 on the list, it was really dealing with your RFC. So for age 60, you would need somewhere like a light RFC to fit in that category. For age 55, you would need a sedentary RFC. I will deal with RFCs in a future video because that needs its own treatment. It needs its own video. So I don't want to get into the weeds into that particular situation. But understand that your RFC has a lot to do with whether the rules will work in your favor. Number 4 on the list is what's called a special medical vocational profile, or in DDS terms, we refer to that as an adverse profile. So an adverse profile is basically a set of conditions that will determine that you cannot do any past work and you're not able to do some other kind of work. Based on those factors, you would be an automatic allowance. Now, there are 3 adverse profiles, and the most popular one is number 2. This is how adverse profile number 2 looks. You first have to be at least 55 years old. You have to hit the magic number. The second thing you have to be able to meet is a severe impairment. It doesn't matter what the impairment is. If the MC determines that that impairment is severe, that satisfies that requirement. Number 3, you cannot have been in school past the 11th grade. It's called limited or less education. So if you were at 11th grade or less, if you did not graduate, then you would satisfy the educational component. And the last one is you have no relevant work experience in the last 15 years. So if you haven't had work in 15 years, the 15 years leading up to when you applied, or if your work experience was not really significant, then you would fall in that adverse profile. You would meet those conditions. You will be allowed and approved for SSDI benefits. Number 5 is what's called an adverse RFC. An adverse RFC is basically saying that you are not able to sustain a job for 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week because of your medical conditions. The MC would provide an RFC that would really be extreme. Keep in mind that the RFC, the residual functioning capacity form, is basically saying this is the most you can do for 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. But in general, what we're talking about is an RFC that is so limiting to where it cannot give you any ability to function in the world of work, doing any kind of job, regardless of the skill base, regardless of the industry, regardless of the number of jobs available. It doesn't matter. Your medical conditions, although they don't meet or equal a listing, are enough to keep you from working just on your ability to do what you need to do to hold down the job. Number 6, and I got that finger there. Number 6 is what I call a fast-tracked claim. The thing I want to mention about fast-tracked claims is they are actually flagged at the local Social Security office, and that flag alerts the DDS to let them know that we have a case that needs high priority based on their medical conditions. So the DDS sees the flag, they see the alert from the Social Security office, and they say, okay, well, we're going to jump on this really quickly. We're trying to get this case moving and decided right away. Now, there are several that fall in this category, so I was going to briefly touch on each one. So the first one is what's called a compassionate allowance. A compassionate allowance is basically an allowance where a person has a condition that is not in the listings and is on the same level as one that you will find in the medical listings. Now, this condition won't result in death, but is so severe to where they say, well, we're going to have compassion on this person and allow them if the records show that they actually have this condition. The second one I want to talk about is a QDD, a quick disability determination. And for these cases, SSA uses a predictive model electronically, basically predicting the case based on the score will actually be a likely allowance. Then there's what's called a TERI case or terminal illness case. This is one of the most severe ones, and TERI cases get a lot of attention because this is a person who has a terminal illness and their condition is likely to result in death. So the Social Security and the DDS want to fast track these claims to get these payments out to these individuals as quickly as possible. And number 7 on the list is an ALJ decision. ALJ stands for an administrative law judge. So let's say that you apply for SSDI and you're denied. And you say, well, I want to appeal that decision. I don't agree with it. You appeal, and that next level of appeal, depending upon the state that you live in, would be called a reconsideration or a recon claim. But let's say that your recon is denied. Well, then your case will then go to the next level of appeals, which is the administrative law judge. An ALJ is usually a person who is a licensed attorney who has been practicing for 7 years or more, and they have a wealth of experience in the area of Social Security disability law. What they do is look at cases on appeal, and then they make determinations based on the evidence and any other information that they may gather during this appeals process to determine whether they can overturn the decision at the lower levels or affirm it or say nothing has changed. Right now, the allowance rate on ALJ decisions are somewhere around the 57% range. So you're looking at a 50-50 chance of getting allowed based on an ALJ decision. I would strongly recommend at this stage that you look into getting a disability attorney to help you, because you're going to need to go before the judge and have the judge ask you questions on what you are dealing with in your conditions and your ability to work. So you need to have someone who knows the system, knows the judges, and also knows the law, and also how you should present yourself and prepare yourself for an ALJ hearing. And that will wrap it up for the top 7 ways you can get allowed for SSDI benefits right now. And I encourage you to really look at these, especially if you're in the categories that I brought up. Now, I will say this, that if you're age 50, I would say that you need to continue to pursue your claim, because you never know what can happen. Even if you're around the age of 45 or a little bit older than 45, I would still suggest you continue to pursue your claim, because there are other rules and other conditions and other stipulations that may work in your favor. You never really know what can get you over the hump in getting a disability decision in your favor. So it's always in your best interest to apply. Be ready for the next video. Don't leave me hanging, because I'm going to see you on the other side.